All right, so the Oklahoma Sooners have some massive targets that are on campus currently right now, visiting out of the transfer portal, not to mention Oklahoma sending offers out, and they're hopeful that they can bolster the roster going into the 2025 season, in a season where, listen, we all know it, Brent Venables has to have a stellar year. So if you're an Oklahoma Sooner fan, you're pleased by this news, but there's one specific former five-star defensive lineman that's visiting Oklahoma that I think is going to intrigue Oklahoma fans the most. And also, it might be a blast from the past. So before we talk about it, before we discuss it, as always, make sure you guys are joining the discussion, jumping down in the comments below. And I'm not going to beat y'all up over it because you showed up in December, but just make sure you hit the like and hit that subscribe button. All right, well, let's go ahead and let's just jump right into it. So we're not going to bury the lead. We're not going to wait till the end of the video. We're going to talk about this five-star defensive lineman, and that is going to be Marvin Jones Jr. If you guys remember, Oklahoma originally at one point during his recruitment, they were in a solid position to potentially land this kid. Ultimately ended up going to Georgia, transferring to Florida State, back in the portal now, and really, this is kind of the theme you see with these kind of players, right? They might go around, try to see what's better out there, but towards the end of their college careers, they try to go to a place where they know they can be developed and potentially get to the NFL, and that's what Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates are best at doing. That's what I think they can do with a guy like Marvin Jones Jr. And last season for the Florida State Seminoles, although I think Florida State fans and Florida State coaches maybe were a little underwhelmed with what Marvin Jones Jr. did for them, Marvin Jones Jr. last year had 25 total tackles, 10 solos, 4 sacks. And this is a guy that, listen, if he gets in the right system, if he buys into the scheme that the coaches want to put him in, he's a guy that can be successful. And we've seen it because when you go look at his PFF grades and you see against some of the talent that he played against, like SMU, who is a college football playoff team, same for Clemson. You look at Duke, who had a decent offensive line, or a Miami, right? These are all teams, North Carolina, that he played well against. These are teams that he showed out against, whether it was in the tackling, the pass rush, or just the overall defensive grade. So you get a guy like this in the system with Miguel Chavis. I have a feeling Miguel Chavis would be able to unlock this kid to be able to go out there and have his best season yet, and then potentially rise his draft stock. So big news, former five-star defensive end is visiting Oklahoma right now. Maybe they'll be able to go in and close the deal. If you can get him in here cheap, maybe you got to take 2 defensive ends in this cycle. Not sure what they're going to do there, but we'll have to keep our eyes there. You also saw Oklahoma throw out an offer to a tight end out of Louisiana Tech at 6'4", 240 pounds. He's a sophomore, so have 2 more years of eligibility. Not super productive in the pass game in terms of him just getting a bunch of yards and touchdowns, but this is a guy that he's a good pass blocking tight end. He's a good tight end that you could be able to go in there and say, hey, we're going to put you in there in the pass, we're going to put you in there in the run, and we want you to be able to protect our quarterback. So that's a name that we potentially need to watch and pay attention to, because Oklahoma fans have been clamoring for Joe John Finley and the staff to go out there and land a tight end. Additionally, you got a commitment from the place kicker, Austin Welch, out of Kennesaw State. And I get it. I feel like everybody's like, well, we're just taking all these Kennesaw State kids. We're just becoming the Oklahoma Kennesaw State team. Well, he kicked 77% of his field goals, 14 of 18, 1 of 1 from 119 yards, 8 of 9 from 30 to 39, 3 of 6 from 40 to 49. Listen, at the end of the day, you just need somebody that can come in there, create a competition, and drive Liam Evans to be the best place kicker that he can possibly be. And I think Austin Welch can come in here and do that. Obviously, Doug Deacons sees something in this kid, and Doug Deacons done a very good job in this room since he's gotten to Oklahoma. Now, other names that we got to potentially be watching, and if you look at Marvin Jones Jr. as the defensive end, you're asking, well, if they don't land him or they land him and they want to get another guy, who else is on the board? And the initial one that you look at is maybe William Whitlow Jr., who was a guy that Oklahoma, I think he was one of the first of the, well, no, he's the second of the 3 because Marvin Jones Jr. got offered first. William Whitlow Jr. is 6'2", 260 pounds. He's got 13 solo tackles this season, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass breakup, 24 total tackles. This was a guy that was super productive for Memphis. And although maybe he's not as good as another guy like we're about to talk about, I think he would fit pretty well in the system that Miguel Chavis wants to do. He's got a really good motor, and this is somebody that I think you could see Oklahoma turn into, maybe like a later round NFL guy, but definitely an NFL caliber type of defensive end. So keep your name on that one. And then you look at Maurice Westmoreland, the 6'2", 250-pound senior out of Houston, Texas, transferring from UTEP. He's an absolute monster, one of the best defensive ends in the entire portal. The past 2 seasons, been a monster on the field, but this season, 45 total tackles, 27 solos, 7.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 pass breakup. Last season, 3 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, 7.5 sacks. 24 solo tackles, 37 total tackles. So Westmoreland, this is a guy that I think every Oklahoma fan wants, even if you can land a guy like Marvin Jones Jr. Now, one more guy or 2 more guys that I'm watching, one in specifically that I'm watching on the defensive line to enter the portal from Clemson, especially if you can get Wes Goodwin as your defensive coordinator at Oklahoma, is a guy by the name of Trey Williams. He's a senior, 6'2", 315 pounds. I believe this guy actually would have been there when Todd Bates was there. Todd Bates would have recruited him. Currently, this season, 14 total tackles, 7 solos, 2 sacks, 2 fumble recoveries, 2 pass breakups. He's a big body that I think you could bring him in and he could replace Deshaun Terry at the nose tackle position. But this is a guy that he graded out really high. Ultimately, this is a guy that I think, again, kind of like Marvin Jones Jr. with Miguel Chavis. Todd Bates can potentially go out there and really shape and mold this guy into the best defensive lineman that he could be and probably get the most out of him. So keep your name and eyes and peeled there. I don't think we're going to see anything until a little bit later on that one. But the last one we got to talk about today is Kendall Daniels, the linebacker slash safety coming out of Oklahoma State, or at least that's what you feel like he would play here at Oklahoma. Kendall Daniels is a guy that could come in and play cheetah, played at a high level last season at Oklahoma State. 64 total tackles, 45 solos, 5.5 sacks, 7 pass breakups. You need a guy like this in your defense. And it feels like now with Zach Alley out of the picture, Kendall Daniels in Oklahoma could potentially be a thing. So I'm watching this. This was a guy that graded out super well, even on a bad Oklahoma State team. And it's one that I think as all Oklahoma fans, we would just like to get a win over Oklahoma State football right now, especially since they don't want to play us. And taking somebody, one of their best players off their squad, I think it's something Oklahoma fans would be pretty well in line for. So I want to hear from y'all. Join the discussion. Jump in the comments below. Give me your thoughts. If you guys haven't already and you guys haven't, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, join the channel, join the discussion.